Welcome back to the Inting Podcast. And today we have a very, very special guest. We have Hugo, also known as the voice actor for Chamber, as most popularly known for, I don't know, our demographic at least.
Our VALORANT demographic.
Nice to meet you, Hugo.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, how you been? Everything been good?
Yeah, the heat just broke. I'm in the Northeast. Just is breaking tonight, so just really relieved.
Oh yeah.
You're in the Northeast.
I'm in the Northeast, yeah.
May I ask where? Because we're also in the Northeast.
I keep that private.
Okay,
Maybe off camera, I'll let you guys know.
No, yeah, for sure. Cool. Yeah, no, we've been experiencing a lot of heat too. It's either
You probably have felt it too, yeah.
This whole summer has either been super hot or it's been raining a lot. There's no in between the whole summer, but
Yeah.
So, how does one actually get into voice act? I know it's something a little different than regular you know how there's like actual acting when it comes to like, on screen and all that. I know voice acting is a lot like you guys don't show your faces and it's like a lot about your voice. But how does actually one get into voice acting as a whole? Or like you can tell us about your origin story and how you got into voice acting.
Yeah. Well, I guess they're kind of two separate questions because I almost feel like the landscape has changed a lot, probably in the last 5 years, 6. Like I started in, I guess 2010. I was already pursuing acting, and at the time, I think now, I mean, you probably see it. I've been on social media just for a little bit of time, but like, I don't even go out and look for it, but there's just so many voice actors, people pursuing voiceover, people wanting to transition into voiceover. And to a certain degree, you can because microphones are getting cheaper and you can get a USB mic and you have everything available to you to try to learn everything. But of course, there's like a lot of competition. But back when I started, I'm hearing my echo there. Is that just me?
Try now.
Hello.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Back when I started, it was kind of like, you'd go to school or theater school, and I went to an acting school, and like, I don't think they mentioned voiceover once. Like, it was never like a thing. A lot of times they're theater schools, so they're not going to mention anything more than theater. But there's film and TV. I never heard once a teacher and I went to a lot of different schools go, and voiceover is also a thing. You can do audiobooks or this or that. Never once. So at the time, it was this kind of obscure thing. So when I started to pursue it by chance, and I moved to Los Angeles, and I would just try to hustle and get jobs. Eventually, I got an agent, so things started moving. When I would talk to other actors, they'd be like, "Oh, you pursue voiceover?" So it isn't to say that there weren't a lot of voiceover actors out there, but typically when you got to like Los Angeles, I'm sure like in New York, you find an acting class or improv or whatever in a community, and it wasn't like a super common thing because at the time the USB mics weren't great, and just people didn't have the know-how. The social media really kind of exploded everything to go, hey, look, you can build a booth in your closet, and this is how you get the good quality. And also, I think that it wasn't like necessarily cool to be a voice actor. I mean, it was kind of within the entertainment community, the people who could do a lot of voices and stuff, but social media, I think, exploded. So it wasn't hugely competitive in a way.
Interesting. So like when you started voice acting, what kind of stuff were you doing first? Like, were you doing animated? Were you doing audiobooks? Like,
no, neither. There's a reason for both of those that I can get to, but commercials are really, which are all kinds. Like it could be an internal thing or it could be a radio commercial, but it was a lot of stuff I would hustle at first would be commercial work, and like 90 to 95% of my work has been in commercials. And that's actually like, I always like see this on, I don't know like what people are going to for resources, but I can tell that a lot of like young people are like, they want to get into anime.
Yeah.
And I think and yeah, right. And it's like, I've never done anime. I've done a little bit of animation, but like, pretty sure anime is not really the place to make a living. Probably a few people, but it's a very tight place. So it's kind of funny because it makes sense because it's like inspiring and cool and it's what people are fans of. But the one harsh tip that I would always give people is like, an agent doesn't want you. They're not going to make any, it's a business. They're going to have to make money on commission on you. Most work is commercials.
Yeah.
So if you can convince an agent that you have a really solid commercial reel and you have ability to sell products in different ways, which does mean characters sometimes, then they might be interested in repping you and they'll send you out for anime sometimes or video games eventually. But
Okay.
and then audiobooks are, to circle back, audiobooks are kind of a funny one because I know people who do them quite a bit. They're a lot of work. They're a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of hours.
And and so it's not necessarily like some agents do not want you to do audiobooks because you're going to be unavailable for a length of time and then you're not. It depends. Some audiobooks are pretty well paid, I guess. I don't really know. I don't do them, but I think from friends some are not really that well paid for the amount of hours you do. So a lot of voiceover actors sometimes can avoid audiobooks unless they're like particularly interested or passionate. But then again, I know people who are like now it's their full-time job and they do audiobooks and try to do other stuff. And so it beats waiting tables. So yeah.
Yeah, because I know like I mean, speaking of like you said Hollywood, I know Hollywood's right now going on a big strike. And when it comes to the strike also, like I know it's a lot with the actors, producers, published like writers and all that. How has that affected the voice acting community, if you don't mind like elaborating? Because I mean, we keep hearing about the actors, we keep hearing about the writers, publishers, but I don't feel like we ever talk about like the voice acting community. I never really heard of like, has this affected all the voice acting community a lot during the strike, or has this just, like not really affected it?
I mean, most voice actors are also on-screen actors or trying to pursue. So a lot of them are union members. So we're all in support, and we know that we support our union in these negotiations. What's basically being negotiated is with the producers and TV and film. So if it's like voiceover in a trailer, or if it's additional dialogue replacement, like it's replacing a celebrity, sometimes we do that kind of thing. Then you can't do that. That's part of the negotiation. But video games aren't affected right now. So people who do mostly video games are still auditioning. I'm still auditioning. We can still work. That's not against the strike. So there's certain people it's not really going to affect at all. And commercials as well are not affected. So it's just a TV and film.
Yeah.
So a lot of little specifics. Some things are affected, some things aren't. It's pretty historic. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I've never seen
happening.
like a strike of this magnitude. I think we've always seen like from like Amazon. You always see like UPS and Amazon. There's a lot of strikes.
UPS just did one.
UPS just did one too. I think they kind of they mostly met the requirement, like the demands that they wanted, which is thank God. But like, do you think that I know a lot of people like would say, oh, Hollywood's very corrupt and like they're not very fair. Do you think that Hollywood actually like the TV and film, do you think they will actually like ever come to an agreement, or do you think it's not going to happen? Like, I know you can always be positive, but do you ever think it's going to ever happen?
Oh, I do think it's going to happen. I mean, it's strikes are hard. They're hard on the economy, and that's what they're supposed to do. They're basically saying, we don't care. This can't continue. We're drawing a line, basically. And so it is going to cost the studios money. So I do think it's going to happen. But I really honestly don't know any more than you guys do of looking on social media and people going, they're using this tactic. And so it's like, I'm definitely not on the inside. I'm no longer in Los Angeles. So I'm kind of out of the loop as far as, if I was in Los Angeles, I might be going to my acting class, and someone in the my acting class might be like, oh yeah, I have this friend. And they might give like an anecdote and you're like, oh, that's really interesting. But I'm like so out of the loop that I have no idea. I mean, I interacted with SAG. I'm a union actor when I was in Los Angeles, and the people that make it run basically, and this is really their time. And most of the time, SAG is organizing events. They are like involved in contract negotiations and stuff, but for the longest time, they've just always reached an agreement. So this is the first time that they're like everyone's just like, no, we have to put a line in the sand as far as these things. So. Yeah, it's crazy. I wish I could expand more on it in detail, but I'd probably show my ignorance basically because I've looked at some of the details, but I don't want to on the record. But it's something you can really just look at the SAG-AFTRA website or follow SAG on on Twitter or social media, and they'll outline what they're fighting for, which is very reasonable things. Yeah, I mean, it's just you have all kinds of people attacking it, but the fact is like residuals is one of the things, and residuals is really what most working class actors have to just like barely scrape by. And a lot of times not even, and we'd like it for it to be more, but I mean, you just, to have enough that you can keep pursuing acting. Because there's so many actors who are really good actors who, in a sense, just from a business standpoint, the industry needs.
Yeah.
Like at some point they're going to need them. They want them. And if they have worked in the past, those residuals, those, a couple $100 here or there, hopefully more, sort of reminds them that they're of value. Because it's a weird job. You're not really getting paid for your auditions, right?
Yeah.
You're getting paid when you work, and you usually don't work a lot, even if you're successful. So it's kind of like your work is auditioning, but you're not getting paid. So then you want to get, recoup your money when you actually book a job, which is usually just SAG minimum. So those residuals they're just a fairness, because whatever your product is keeps getting sold, keeps getting redistributed, and all the people involved make money. And so it's just a fair thing. And you've probably seen on social media some people showing the residuals that are like, 2 cents or whatever. So it's regarding just an equitable distribution of wealth, a proportional one that honestly oftentimes is not that much money. It's literally just to help actors keep going.
Yeah.
And keep trying, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do hope that they finally do come to an agreement, because it is kind of insane. Like, I'm seeing on social media, like even on Instagram, Twitter, it's everywhere. Like this strike, I've never seen like a strike get this much media attention before.
For
So
sure,
it is kind of like as you said, it is kind of historic also. So I do hope the directors and like the studios actually come to an agreement, thankfully. So you said you did commercials, and you said you did a lot of other. How did you land into Valorant? Is this like the first video game you've ever voiced, or is this like how did you stumble upon it, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I mean, there are some Valorant actors, I think, when we talked all together, I think there are some people who kind of like stumbled into it and who were not experienced in voiceover. But I had done voiceover in video games. I had a few credits, but nothing huge, mostly like supporting characters. And when I first started doing video games, it took me a long time. Like, speaking of, like, you start in commercials and you do little independent projects, and finally I did like a little independent video game. But I auditioned for a lot of video games before I finally got one. And I think it's in part, maybe I got better or whatever, but also it's a tight room. I think it's changed, and there's so many video games now, but I also think, like anime, you get known by a company, you get known by casting directors, and they like, the thing is like most of us can do different voices, and they like reusing people. So it takes a while for people to like notice you. So it took me a while. And so like the first game I worked on was Days Gone by Ben's studio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've never played the game. I've like looked on it. I've watched on Twitch, because I don't really play video games. But I'll be like, oh, it's a cool game. But I worked on that for like several years, like on and off, basically. And so I'm all over that game, like voices and NPCs that are like attacking you. And I also did little like scenes and stuff where I just did all kinds. I can't even remember. Like I did so much stuff. So that was and I did mocap for that. Which mocap, you know what mocap is. Yeah. Sometimes people do mocap and they're acting and they're speaking, and sometimes they're just like do mocap and then you're just like a soldier or whatever, and you're working the environment or whatever. And it's really, really, really fun, actually. Yeah. I think if you did it every day for a year, you might be sick of it, but otherwise it's like one of the funnest, I think one of the funnest things you can do in the entertainment industry, honestly. I mean, I don't know, probably not everybody's taste, but it's just fun because it's just a gigantic space and cameras everywhere, and you have little dots and you see yourself, and it's just so futuristic. It's cool. Yeah, so I did that, but that was like, so that, got me into the game. And then I did a few other things and started having characters that had like names actually in supporting. And then, I'd had a good agent for a while. And so it was just an audition, and it was, I think, pre-pandemic, and, got me in front of them to audition, basically.
So like, how did your agent ever pitch, Chamber to you? Like when he was things like, hey, I got a gig for you for this like game called Valorant, you want to come and try it out? Like how did that like?
Oh no, it's not even like, They're it's a big I'm with a pretty big agency, and they have a lot of people, a lot of rosters, and I'd have to talk to them, but just like it's not, they get submissions and they go, hey, we're looking for this, and they just look through probably their client list, and they send it out to us. Get it to us by tomorrow, get it to us by 2 p.m, get it to us by 2 days, sometimes.
Yeah.
And the breakdown, like companies like Riot will just usually have a breakdown of the character. I think they had like a sketch, they had Deadeye, and then they have like, this is what we're thinking, and then they'll have, however many lines. And yeah, that's it. They just you send the audition and then you forget about it. Like when you're busy, you get a lot of auditions, and you're not like sending the audition and then going, ooh, I wish I get that. You literally forget about it.
Yeah.
Because also I think most time they don't tell you it's Valorant. They say it's Project X, Project whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they don't like to tell you. They're very, very secretive about that. Sometimes they like don't do a great job about like making it secret, because you can like figure it out. You're like, you look at the lines.
You put like one and one together. It's like, wait,
you can
this
like
character's
Google
from
it.
this
Yeah,
game.
yeah. So it's like if they really wanted to be secret, they'd have to. But usually it's like anonymous, and so you send it and you forget about it, and then it was an in-person callback, and we had a really long in-person callback with people from Riot. And I think then they probably told me what it was and showed me some stuff. But even then, I'm like, the actor's way is like, you don't have the gig until you have the gig. You don't have the gig until you've seen the product on the screen. You will assume that you're cut out of it, or they decided to go some other way. So even after that, I was just like, okay, well, I hope I got that.
Yeah.
And then later on we recorded, and it was all virtual because it was during the pandemic. And then that was really fun. And then finally it came out, and you're like, oh, good. And then it's kind of wild. So yeah.
Who would you say is like the most fun character or role that you've had to do in your career?
For voiceover in general, or
just whatever, even if it's like a commercial or something.
That's true. Commercials gonna be fun. Oh my gosh, that's a good question. I mean, Chamber has been the most satisfying because it's opened up this whole world to me. Yeah, I mean, comedies can be a lot of fun too. Like I've done a lot of different like things. I honestly, I think the most satisfying fun. It's a short film it was a graduate thesis film from a student at Loyola Marymount, and I really enjoyed working with the director. And what was really fun is we shot on film, and he didn't have any money, so he had to like a limited amount of film.
Yeah.
So we'd kind of have to like we'd have to rehearse once, and then have to do one take, maybe 2 takes, no 3 takes. So I found that really fun because it was like, because it makes it gives because a lot of times I would do like student films and short indie films, and I wouldn't necessarily get the jitters that I would get if it was like a big job. So it gave me like the jitters of like, oh, and it was just fun to just be like, oh, can I do this in one take, basically. So yeah, I didn't think I'd say that, but that was like a fun experience, and the character was just a kind of a straightforward husband, but that was a fun experience. Yeah.
Okay. What's like your favorite part of the entire process? So is it like going through, because I used to intern at a studio where we did a lot of voiceover stuff, and so I was kind of one of the guys being like, okay, could you say it this way, could you say it that way, or whatever.
Yeah.
Out of the whole process, what do you think is like the most fun part of it?
I think the experience with Valorant with Riot was very different than all my other video game experiences, because when you're a smaller character, you just kind of got to get a move in and get the job done. And then when they're happy, you're happy. Like you can just do a line a certain way and they're like, cool. And you're like, you can't have in your head that like, ooh, I want another one. Every once in a while you can, but you just got to be professional. And so I did some other video games where I had a little more room to breathe and like create stuff. So I had fun working on Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. But Valorant was really different because we had whole days of recording, mostly half days, and then, sometimes we'd go back, have another recording session and go back and work on the stuff again. Like they really were trying to like locate the accent and, just work on little things. So it was a completely different experience from everything else that I've recorded, including commercials, which are especially like, sometimes they take a long time, but they're not collaborative either most of the time. Like you're just trying to there to execute. Whereas with Riot, I wasn't feeling like I was in a place where I was like, maybe if I say this. I think some of the other agents had those experiences. Or like, maybe if I say this, but I didn't have that. They didn't close
You
the
couldn't
door to me,
improvise at
but-
all. Sometimes be like, hey, this character might be funny if he said this, or this might be creative. If he said
No. We just kind of did what we had. I mean, the lines were great, and I'm just so used to not crossing that professional boundary. But I think I probably could have, and maybe I will next time we record. Maybe I will say, hey, what about this? I might have said things a little differently, but I kind of like when the writers just have their it's their job, and I just try to execute basically. Yeah. But they definitely were like would have been open because it's just record. They don't have to use it. If I had an idea, I'm sure if I was like, hey, how about this? They'd be like, yeah, sure. So yeah, but yeah, they're really, really fun to work with. The only thing that sucked was it's all remote. So it was all virtual, and I'd see them on the screen for a little bit, and then it'd just be all, and then I'd be like, and then when I was all done, I was like, I'm not sure who I worked with.
Yeah.
I had to like find people like, oh yeah, Jeremy was the director, and like, but that was like my bad and a learning experience because just working on a project, you don't know what it's going to be. And then Valorant came out, and it's now been like a really big part of my life.
Yeah.
So it's yeah. So it was a little strange because it was pandemics. I think normally there would have been people in person to chat with and stuff like that.
Has it changed since then? Like, do you like go out there, or are there anything that you do, or it's
I haven't recorded in a while. And since I'm on the East Coast, I think I don't know if they have an East Coast location or anything like that. So probably it's going to be virtual. So in a way, it's not going to change.
They never asked you to, like if you can fly to their location, their HQ to record. They never asked you. They've always asked you through.
Not me. I can't really speak for other agents if they're like closer by or whatever. You can really get a lot done virtually, and there's so many like studios around. So I don't think it really makes like necessarily like a huge difference. So yeah, we'll see next time I record because I haven't recorded since I've been on the East Coast. So we'll see what they require. I mean, I have a little home studio, but I like prefer a little more space if I'm going to do video games. So we'll see. So
you said you haven't been on social media much, but then you said like when you did Chamber, and I see like a lot, you like to retweet and you like to like comment on people doing Chamber cosplays. How has that been, like seeing so many different Chamber cosplays, seeing people like tag you in this, like, oh, look, I did a Chamber cosplay, and then they just tag you in it. Like, do you love that?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, especially the fan art is what I've like interacted with the most. I mean, you mentioned that as like I probably have with the cosplays, and I haven't done it much. I just did it today, actually. You're right. That was like a first time in a while. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it's a funny world because it's like, I got in social media kind of late, definitely not when Chamber was out, and I got like much later. So I've been like playing catch up and learning sort of the social media game of like, what do you do? Like you make mistakes, you know what I mean? And you just like try to have fun. You're like, what's fun? You know, it's like, what do you do to like try to enjoy it? So it's but the fun part, the easy part is just engaging with fans and being like, it just pops up on my feed. So like if the art is cool, I share it. And I've met a lot of the artists and worked with them some. They were like for my Streamly store, which is open for a couple more days. So I have these artists who like, they have original Chamber art, and like this month, all the 90% of the money this month just goes to them, goes to the artists. I did it as a gift. Yeah, because they offered all this art, and I feel like they should get something back.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been really cool. I honestly, the cosplayers, I probably haven't interacted as much with the cosplayers, but a few. But it's amazing how much work they put into all their. Yeah, I haven't been to a con either, so like it would be cool to go there and see all the Valorant stuff. Yeah. Because
I went to because last year I went to Comic-Con last year, so like
nice.
seeing that was just an experience. Seeing like crazy cosplays where like they go down to like the tiny bit of detail to just get it right. It's just genuinely insane because I asked like, while I'm there, I'm like, I'm curious. I'm like, all right, so how long did it take you to make all this? It's like, oh, it took me like about a few weeks to just really create this and really like get it down to the nooks and cranny, get it to right fit. It's not too baggy, it's not too tight, just right. So like seeing all that is insane, and then seeing Chamber like all these like cosplay chambers, then you see like a group of chambers just all together and all that. It's kind of insane to see because like
it is.
Does it motivate you also to like play a voice actor or like other characters or other video games so you could just see that more cosplayers that also in fan
Just
art?
collect cosplays like some of my peers. Yeah, like I've just had there is a little bit of that of going like being on social media and like I love Chamber and Valorant and be like, oh yeah, it'd be cool to take a little break and promote something else. Basically,
Yeah.
like there are a lot of other voice actors who have a lot of different projects, and so they can like, oh, check this out and stuff like that. So yeah, for sure, I definitely get motivated to try to break into other stuff for sure, and it's part of the fun of doing the project, but it is part of the fun of being part of the world and going, oh, that's cool. These people are having fun with it, and every video game has like a different flavor, a different world, different types of fans. So yeah.
So I know you said you hadn't played like Days Gone since you were in it, but have you played Valorant since you've been?
No. People ask me that all the time, and I'm just like, I said no, and then I started to be like, I have a Mac, so I don't have the operating system.
That's true.
I probably would have if I didn't have an OS. And people are like, get a computer, and I'm like,
I don't do this.
I'm just here to voice act, bro. I'm not a gamer.
there's a little bit of that. I think like I see voice actors like, whoop, I'll turn down my gain a little bit. There's a little bit of like if you're well known within like a community that you're just like you're doing great financially or something. You're like you're rolling in it because you're one character or whatever. So unfortunately, I don't have like the expendable income to buy a gaming PC.
Yeah. That's
But
right.
also-
Gaming is a very, very, very expensive hobby.
It's a thing, right? Yeah, exactly.
Because you got to get each monitor, then you got to get a gaming keyboard, all that. Yeah, no, it's
I've
expensive. I get it.
seen. Yeah,
So-
yeah.
You said you did animated. You said you did animated like films or like shows before. Like, is there like I know you've explored like you said you expand onto anime also. Is there like an anime show where you would like, damn, I would have loved to voice act in, or like an animated show or anime like you would like, damn, I would have loved to voice act. I know I would kill that. Is there one in particular?
I'm gonna totally show myself my ignorance. Like I don't like I love Miyazaki, Hayao Miyazaki, but I mean that would be like cream of the crop to be able to like English VA for one of those. But no, I don't really watch much anime. I should. Yeah, I really should. I unfortunately like I see like Castlevania just came out, right?
Yeah,
And I was like, that looks cool. To watch the trailer, I just haven't got around to it. I like when I was a kid, Akira was like I got all my friends into
What?
Akira.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I tried rewatching it recently, and I was like too violent for me. When I was a kid, I was just like eating it up, and I was like, I don't know if I'm in the mood. The opening is like so violent.
Yeah.
But it's a masterpiece, and I just remember it was such an impactful movie, and the English VAs. I remember just the voices. You just scotch onto them because the characters are so three-dimensional in the best animes that you get really but I'd love to. I do get auditions for anime and animation, and I haven't done much. I definitely haven't done any anime, so I think that it's weird. It's like I do think that sectors like video games, anime, they are kind of like a club. They're kind of like you have to get through the door and get that first job. And I think the people that produce them produce a lot of stuff. And they kind of know there's a thing in the industry with a lot of stuff is they want to book you and know you can do the job. And until you've done the job, they don't know you can do the job. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's like you need to be hired to be hired, to have had a job to be hired. So, but I probably just need to up my game up. But I never have gotten into anime.
Do you think that now after you done Chamber, do you think like have you enjoyed the process so much of doing Chamber? You're like, damn, I want to do more video games. I want to do more anime. Like why? Because the community is like, it feels like it's so like because you said you were new to social media, so like you see all these people cosplaying, fan arts, just tagging you. Does that motivate you wanting to do more on the video game and anime side instead of going to commercial and like maybe live shows?
Oh yeah, I mean my live shows and TV would be my principal love, to be honest. But it's intimidating actually now that people know Chamber and stuff like that. There's like more pressure, and now that I see the fans and stuff like that, and now that I've like met some of them, a lot of people who are really passionate about video games and I guess anime and other stuff, like there is this sense of like wanting to please them and make them like inspired and impress them, even to be like, oh, that was really good voiceover. Voiceover is like it came kind of easily to me, but it is, you have to push yourself. It's easy to kind of just do a voice.
Yeah.
And what's hard is to capture a voice and then truly capture an emotion. It is harder. I've sort of taken it for granted a little bit, and now when I think about future jobs, I think I'm gonna push myself further, and I think pushing myself further is due to meeting the fans and knowing how passionate they are and wanting to do it. It's just so much more three-dimensional when you meet fans, even virtually. And you're like, oh, okay, they put so much of their heart into make fan art and all this stuff that you want to make people happy. You want to give that extra effort, basically, not just look at it as a job or a check or something.
Yeah, because I feel like it does. Like the cosplay and the fan art community, like it's massive when it comes to like their favorite character, especially like when they know the voice actors also. Because also when it comes to anime, when they figure out like a really good voice actor from one show is voice acting another, they go crazy. Where it's like, oh my god, this show is better be amazing. So like you also like. Now that you have Chamber, it's like now everyone's be like, oh, what's his next show? Or like, it's gonna be great because he did such a good job with Chamber. It's gonna be such a great job with like any other video game character he decides to go on.
I hope so. I hope so. It's hasn't really happened, but that's okay. It's not bitter grapes, but it's a tough industry. I've gotten auditions, I've gotten stuff, but it's I think the fans care more than the industry does.
Yeah.
I don't think the industry, like I've had conversations where I'm like, does it matter? Does it have any impact that I got this job? That's a very common question for all actors. Like an actor will get, like even a much bigger job than me, like get like a guest star in a show, and they'll be like, oh cool, when it's over, I'm gonna get another job, right? And I've known actors who were like, like main characters on like a TV show and then don't work for a year. And then it's such a large industry and people are moving so fast that it's just people aren't really paying attention to you. So then it's really a matter of not only doing a great job in your audition, but showing up, being ready for someone to recognize you. And then the part that I really don't know very well, which I'm discovering, which is just like self-promotion. Because you get an agent, but your agent, unless you're big, they don't really have time. They can pitch you for certain things, but they don't have time to like track things down for you or really like, they don't really pitch. You have to be a lot higher up to be like really pitched and pushed. So it's really up to you. And that's why I kind of got in social media to go, okay, I have this opportunity with Chamber and I've just sort of let it sit. So it's me trying to like, up myself just to go, okay, here I am. And I believe in myself and I should be working more, which is what all actors think. So it's not, I'm no different. It's like, oh yeah, sure. But that's what it is of just going. So yeah.
I feel like, with social media, I feel like a lot of people do make their like presence known on social media. I feel like that's how they get a lot of traction, a lot of gain. I feel like you like going with and being like putting all these like
the duet things,
like always duetting, like all showing, like retweeting, showing these fan arts, and really communicating with the community. Like it shows like a lot of appreciation. It's like, oh, like I do love this job and I am getting paid for it, but I also do I love the community more because it's actually showing like I did a good job. Because like
I wouldn't be able to do like the self promotion. I wouldn't be able to be on social media. I would leave. I would not be able to stay on social media if it wasn't for like the people who make it worth it. Who are like sharing their own art and meeting people and collaborating and meeting you guys and just meeting people, just having like a virtual community of just meeting people and people are just treating each other decently. I mean, it's like, if it wasn't for that, for those positives, then just getting online and promoting your thing, it would, I mean, I guess I probably would sue it now that I'm here. Yeah, it's really exhausting. And I think it's really sad too. I think I see a lot of people try to like promote something and it doesn't get they think it deserves. I've felt that, but I try to avoid that feeling because I'm mostly just engaging in the community basically and stuff I can control basically. So I don't have too much expectation that it's, and also I'm trying to like play the game. Like I do a lot of contests, a fair amount. And I go, yeah, you want a voicemail? I'll give you a voicemail if we get to this subscribers. I'll make a silly video if we get to this subscribers. It's like, you're kind of like, you're entertainment for some people. I mean, we all are on social media, so you're trying to be like, well, what do people want? What would they like? What make them happy? It's like you can't just like go on social media all the time and go, give me more followers. It's like we all kind of want to do that, but it's just like it's a little crass if you're constantly doing that, or if. And I have a hard time. I do it a bit, but it's hard to just go like, hey, check out this project I did and check it out again, check it out again, check it out again. It's just like that. I think is part of it if you're thinking from a business standpoint, but you have to find something that is just like neutral or positive, which I think is just like, oh, cool, these people are doing cool things. Let's retweet them. People have cool art, people have cool music and stuff like that. And it's just like, so that's fun.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I feel like your story is like how you progress from like going up and up, and like how you just stumbled upon Valorant, and then like opening yourself to like a massive community is actually like really nice. Because like, was it very overwhelming at first? Were you like kind of like taking a step back, or were you like, oh, you absorbed everything and it was like enjoyable?
No, it was very overwhelming. I wasn't on social media because of that. Partly because I was just like didn't know how to like promote myself. But also I'd never really been on social media. Like I'd had social media accounts, but it never been like my thing. So I would see, I would lurk. I would lurk on Twitter, and I would be like, what's going on with Valorant and stuff like that, and be like, oh, okay. But it was scary because I just didn't know what it was going to be like to open myself up to fans and communications, and also just open myself up to the hustle of social media and like what it would do. So it took me a while to like find my balance, and I found a few things that kind of gives me a little bit of balance, but not that I still can't get addicted to social media like we all can sometimes. But I am sort of more aware. I think I've gone through my like honeymoon phase. That's not the right word for this, but the first moment where you're like, what the hell? You know what I mean? And then you're like, okay, gotcha. I got you, social media. But it is very overwhelming because it's hard to take compliments from people who like the game, and and you also like, it's very like despair and compare because you see people who've been on social media much longer, who are more successful. Some people are just more successful. Some people are just more comfortable on social media. All these other things, and you kind of just compare and go like, oh, I'm not doing this right. All right, am I? So it's intimidating, and also it's a huge Valorant, such a huge world that you're like, I should be taking advantage of it. Why isn't this working for me? Or why isn't this, there's all kinds of questions you ask yourself, which are, you just realize after a while, it's just like, you're going to drive yourself crazy if you overanalyze it. There's a certain element of chaos to social media, and you're either just on it or you're not, but you have to give in to the fact that it's a little chaotic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what is one big advice you would give to people who want to be into voice acting or want to be into like your kind of field? So like, what would you think one big advice you would tell them not to do or to do?
Like I said before, you have to think about it as business, and you have to diversify. It's fine if you want to do a specific thing, but if it's a total business, it's a money-making business, and you have to think about, well, how do people get agents? I think it's way too hard not to have an agent. I think you really, I don't know, because I see people hustle and stuff, but I'm just like, when I do hear from voice actors who are hustling, I'm like, oof, that's not, they say how much they're paid. I'm like, that's not gonna work long term, guy. That's not going to pay rent. Yeah. So you do have to get those jobs. You have to be up for those jobs. In order to do that, you have to have good reels, and you can't just be like, I want to be an anime actor. You just, I mean, I sound really mean saying that, but it's like, that would be my advice, is like, you have to, regardless what your voice is like, your skills are like, see what other avenues you can do. Make yourself an audiobook reel, attempt commercials. Commercials, people think that you have to have a deep voice to do commercials or whatever. There's all kinds of voices in commercials. So find your lane that would work for commercials, find those examples, start working on commercial reels, and find yourself whatever agent you can in your market. Doesn't matter, just really doesn't matter how small of an agent, how or whatever. There's regional radio commercials and stuff all over. Just start small, start wherever you can, but get yourself to a professional level where you're, someone who's going to make money for someone who then can work. It's their profession to find you those jobs, basically. Because I see online people are like, why don't I get these auditions? And we're like, well, because it's a system. The agents have access to the auditions, and everyone else does not have access to
Yeah.
most of those auditions. People are always just like, oh, where do I find this audition for Valorant? And it's just like, it's most likely not going to be out to the general public. Sometimes they're going to be looking for someone if there's a specific thing, but most likely they're going to look through agents. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Alrighty. So, I don't know if you know, we have traditional questions we like to ask every guest usually. So we have two questions. One of them is, do you drink boba at all? Have you tried boba tea at all?
Gecko?
No, boba tea. Yeah.
No, I said like gecko. Right.
Yeah.
No. I had some with my friend recently, not like 6 months ago. Like, well, I'll probably have it once every like 3 years.
Okay. So what was the order you liked, or what was the most one that caught your eye when you got it?
Oh, I wouldn't even know.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't even know. I'd probably just get like a milk tea or something.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
What do you guys? I don't know boba at all. What do you guys get? What do you recommend?
So I actually got some right here. I have a
nice
pina colada slush with boba in it.
Oh no,
I usually try to get I usually get I think the taro milk tea. Or sometimes like the cookies and cream one. Those two are like always
I can hang with
they've
that.
They've never
Pina
missed
colada. I think I've had some bad drunk experiences with the flavor. I just had a response. Something must have happened that I forgot about. All right.
And then our second question is,
this one's a good one.
have you ever tried a bidet before?
I'm French. What do you think?
Oh, okay. Because so I own one, but he always makes fun of me and says like,
Great.
"Oh, not everyone has one. That's a privilege kind of thing. Not everyone has a bidet." And then he always roasts me. So we were like, before we made this, I was like, let's just ask every guest if they have a bidet or not.
I can't wait to buy a bidet. I would love to buy a bidet, like electronic one. My parents have one, but of course there's some in Europe. There's the traditional ones, but yeah, dude. Don't make fun of them. It's a superior experience.
I think that's easily the best response I've ever heard anybody say.
Yeah.
But thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it. If you want to promote anything or if you want to tag anything, you're more than welcome to. Everything, we'll link everything in the description down below on our YouTube. So if you want to promote anything or anything, just let us know, or you can say it right now, and then we can put it on our YouTube description.
Yeah, sure. First off, thanks for having me, guys. This was really enjoyable, and I appreciate all the questions, and hopefully we can stay in touch. Is this going out right now?
No,
it's
probably
today
with it by like Tuesday or Wednesday.
Tuesday or Wednesday.
Oh, okay. So the contest will be over. If I get to 2,500 Twitter followers, I have to draw Chamber.
Okay.
All right, artist friends.
Everyone got to make sure to follow
Crappy
Chamber.
art skills. Yeah. That's Hugo P. Martin on Twitter. Hugo Pierre Martin on Instagram. And and then I have an audio series called The Diaries of Netavicius the Vampire, which is just self-made. And the last episode was the voice actor Aaron Vodovos from Sova, who plays Sova.
Oh, okay.
He was my first guest star. It was really sweet of him to come on and do a voice. So that's the last episode. Then we have a short season finale in a couple days. And then I go back to my part 3. So it's just a fun, quirky, kind of dramatic audio series where I do most of the voices, though hopefully I will have some more guest stars. Maybe Aaron back again. So that's what I do with my time. And that's actually circling back. That's how I kind of stay healthy on social media, as I interact with the artists who create the art for the audio series, just out of the goodness of their heart, and interact with fans and just kind of like creating this story just for fun, because it's not a profit thing right now. It's just for the love of the art and for the love of voiceover.
Yeah. Appreciate it. No, you're definitely very down to earth. There's very like a lot of guests a lot of people get like intimidated by like a lot of people who have like a big market, and like for you who's in voice acting. But I feel like every guest we've ever had on, there's like very down to earth, and you were like very down to earth and like essentially told how it is. Like when it comes to voice acting, it's like it's a business at the end of the day, and that was like really really refreshing to hear. So it's like, oh, you can't just go into this expecting to get it. It's a business at the end of the day, which is like
it's a really hard lesson to remember. But yeah, that's kind of the thing no one wants to hear, and that's what I wish I was told when I started, because people just like tell you not to get into it. But ultimately, if you do want to get into it, you're going to get into it, and you really need people to mentor you or to just tell you like, hey, if you believe in yourself, take it seriously, put in the work every day, what you're going to put in business-wise, marketing-wise, whatever. Try to think about that. And I'm still learning myself. But that's because I wasn't really told that as much the youngster. So that's really I would tell my past self is like you gotta think about it as a business and not take it so personally when you have rejection and all these other things.
Yeah, appreciate it, Hugo. Thank you so much for coming on.
you.
It's been a lot.
Appreciate you guys.
And thank you guys for listening. Appreciate it. And thank you. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.